persuasively.com, your go-to resource for U.S. immigration insights. We provide clear immigration news and information. Our platform provides a network of licensed attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylums to citizenships, immigrationquestion.com helps you to network with immigration attorneys so that you can move forward with confidence. Sign up today or download the app. Free registration, limited time offer. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special edition webinar hosted by immigrationquestion.com, a public networking platform and meeting ground where immigrants, families, advocates, and licensed immigration attorneys come together to understand U.S. immigration policies and procedures better. I'm your host, GB Satusa, and I will be your host, your host for today's important discussion: winning an asylum case without perfect evidence. What actually works. Now, for many asylum seekers, one of the biggest concerns is not having complete or perfect evidence to support their claim. However, asylum cases are often evaluated based on a combination of testimony, supporting documentation, and credibility rather than a single piece of evidence. So, understanding what adjudicators look for, how to present available evidence effectively, and how to address gaps in documentation can increase the chances of a positive outcome. To help us break this down, we are honored to be joined by attorney Eric Garro, an experienced immigration attorney who represents asylum seekers and helps them build strong and well-supported cases. Attorney Garro, thank you for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you for this important discussion.
Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. It is my pleasure. My name is Eric Garro. I'm here to help.
Now, before we begin, a quick reminder to our audience: immigrationquestion.com is a public educational and networking platform. The information shared today is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized legal advice. If you are joining us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or any other platform, welcome. Please subscribe and share this session with anyone who may benefit from understanding how to build an asylum case. Now, let's dive right in. Attorney Garro, can you provide a general overview of how asylum adjudicators evaluate claims?
Yes. The basic requirements for asylum are 5 requirements. You have to, first of all, you have to be suffering from a past or have a well-founded fear of future harm in your country. And the harm has to rise to the level of persecution, meaning that you're being seriously mistreated, and not it's just a general hardship. It's just serious mistreatment, and it has to be connected to 5 grounds only. And this is when things get a little bit confused by people. Those grounds have to be that your harm that you experienced in the past or you may experience in the future in your country has to be connected to your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or you belong to a particular social group. And for that last, membership of particular social group, this is being done by jurisprudence based on cases that have been ventilated by the courts, and they have decided that you belong to a certain group. For example, in the beginning, there was a ruling that women from Guatemala that have been battered by their partners were a social group. And this expanded later on in interpretation that any person that is being harmed by their partners in the country, where the country and the system cannot protect them or are unable or unwilling to protect them, that would be, for example, of a belonging to a particular group. So these are very important for people to understand. You cannot claim asylum or request asylum if you've been a victim or a regular crime. If you're a victim of gang membership, violence only. It's got to be related to one of those uh, special points: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or belonging to a particular group. That is when a good attorney can come and put it together and spin it in a way that will validate those points. But you need to speak to an attorney about that. The question is, when you get into the country and you get initial um, reasonable fear interview, that's when the problems get a little complicated because people don't know how to answer those questions. And later on, we have to rephrase them and re-establish to be able to maintain the requirements of asylum. So that you have to show that you were targeted in a serious way and for a specific protected reason, and the country cannot protect you,
Yeah.
or the country who is harming you.
Now, attorney, what types of evidence are considered most persuasive, and how can asylum seekers make the strongest case even when certain documents or proof are unavailable?
All right, well, let's first understand how the adjudicators evaluate the claims. And let's back up a little bit because there can be two types of asylums. It can be affirmative asylum or a defensive asylum. The requirements are almost the same. But remember that the affirmative asylum is when you are not put in a removal process, that you are entered the country in one way or another, and you're claiming asylum directly to USCIS. That is an affirmative asylum. A defensive asylum is when you are put in removal proceedings, and then you submit the asylum to the court, and that is a defensive asylum. The characteristics are the same. The adjudicators evaluate the same things, which remember those 5 points. But what is most looked at for the evidence is the credibility, number one, the consistency, and the legal fit. That claim fit with those five protected grounds. The nexus between that is what is important. So that you are believable, that you're consistent, and that it meets the legal definition of persecution in your country, and that the country is not able or is not willing to protect you um, from that harm. So, consistent with that, what is most important is your declaration. Declaration is the number one evidence. They pay a lot of attention to that. So you have to have that strong foundation by a good declaration. It's got to be well detailed. It has to be chronological. You have to do it in a certain way, and you have to be emotionally authentic. That has to be very credible. What happens to you, you have to explain it very clearly, and why the applicant cannot return to the country. So those
Yeah.
are the most important part of the evidence. But other evidence is important, like testimony and affidavits of friends, family, witnesses. Those are very powerful. Those are they have a lot of weight, and depending of who are those witnesses, the evidence have a lot of weight. Also,
Yeah.
medical reports, psychological evaluations, you know, uh, social media records, photos, or police reports and other messages or threats. If you have some threats that you can prove, they came from, the media, any media, and you keep those, it's important to document that. Those are the most important parts of the evidence, but it needs to be consistent. It needs to be all put together in relation to your claim.
Yeah. Now, attorney, you said an applicant's personal declaration is very important. What strategies help present it convincingly?
Well, the first thing is when you do the declaration, you have to do it consistently with what the adjudicators are looking for. First of all, they want to know who you are. So you give
Yeah.
them a little bit of your biography, who, your name, where you were born, uh, where did you go to school, your background, education, work. An overall, it could be just a couple of paragraphs, 3, 4 paragraphs about yourself, who you are, what is your family, where are your values coming from, a little bit about who you are to put it in context, and then explaining chronologically your situation, when that happened, how it happened, who did it, and how many times, and despite of weak evidence, a good declaration can have a lot of weight. It has to be clear again, has to be consistent, and have to align with the country conditions. All this has to be put together, you know, you know, consistently and harmoniously
Yeah.
to get to a good claim for asylum. Asylum cases are difficult to win, and I have to be honest right now, it's more difficult to win with the current administration and regulations. So
Mm.
have to put it together well in order to have a little chance. We attorneys have statistics, and in some jurisdictions it's more complicated, more difficult than others, and some judges are more difficult than others. And fortunately, there's a lot of discretionary power from the judges and the adjudicators at USCIS. So
Yeah.
um, then you have to plan uh, from the beginning if you want and you are willing to go into a appeal. So it is fundamental that you structure your asylum case well from the beginning, because in appeals you cannot bring any new evidence and you cannot do anything new. It's just you have to um, back it with strong formulations from the beginning.
Yeah. Attorney Garro, are there any creative or alternative pieces of evidence, like an affidavit, that have proven effective?
Yes, the affidavits are important, as I said before. Depending of the weight of the person. They
Yeah.
look into, okay, who is this person? How did he witness the situation? Was he direct witness? Was this person um, and if this person is credible, in also the declaration, and again all the consistency with what is being said from the beginning at all stages of the process. You can change certain things from the credible fear interview, because people are afraid. They just new in the country, they don't know what to say, they just they don't understand the questions correctly. So there's a little bit of you know space there to rephrase things correctly, but cannot be completely in inaccurate, cannot be inconsistent. It must be consistent from the beginning. So it's important to understand those things. But even a case without witnesses, without any other evidence, there it can be win with a good declaration. The declaration is number one piece of evidence. And if it is credible, consistent, and is backed with the background of the country, you can win an asylum case.
All right. Apologies for that connection issue, Attorney, but thank you for continuing. Now,
Mhm.
Attorney Garro, in situations where applicants cannot obtain documents from their home country, how should they explain these gaps to adjudicators?
Mhm. Well, the judges and USCIS understand the situation, especially in which countries, because this happens with
Yeah.
not only one person; it is recurrent. So they understand that. So they understand that you cannot you left your country, and you left because actually the government was persecuting you, and you cannot go to the country and request evidence that you're going to use against them. And some countries, they don't even give you an ID or a passport, and that is not known. But again, all the declaration. You said what happens, what you try to do, when you try to do it, and the more specific you are, and chronologically, again, it's important to have dates. If you have the dates, put your dates in there. It is good to have a chronological, good, well put together testimony, and that will avoid a lot of problems with evidence.
Yeah. Now, in your experience, what distinguishes a case that gets approved despite weak evidence from one that gets denied?
Well, the biggest disapproval is that the connection with one of those five grounds: race, religion, nationality, political opinion of membership into a social group. Typically, you can enter into one or two or three of those categories and those protected grounds. You just have to understand how to link them together, because political opinion sometimes comes from your you know religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So your religious beliefs are tied to your political opinion, and it may be that you belong to a particular group. For example, in Guatemala, certain indigenous groups qualify for, um, in other countries in Latin America, qualify for being members of a particular group, and you're being targeted because of your uh, ethnicity and nationality. So it can be several grounds there that you need to know how to mix them together and be strong in your argument. So the nexus is one of the things that um, loses a lot of the asylum cases, because there is no nexus between what you're claiming and these five different grounds.
Right. Now, looking ahead, what advice would you give asylum seekers to build a compelling case from the onset?
Well, first of all, depends on how you enter the country, right? And also, you have to be careful of social media. What are you posting? Because they can be used, anything of that can be used against you. So, also, um, if you have a visa and you go back to your country, and you're saying that you were afraid of being in that country, but you went to visit your grandpa, that will be something that will disqualify your credibility, and things of that sort, right? Having a family there that were living with you at the time that you were persecuted, and why were you persecuted, and not your family, and they're still there. And so there's a lot of different um, specific situations that you need to explain uh, from the offset. Well, they were targeting me because of this and this and this, and it's only me, not the rest of my family. So you have to be very, very specific and clear from the offset. And also remember that you have to be consistent depending on what you said in the uh, you know first interview for your credible fear. If you um, produce yourself into the border or an a port at entry in the country, and you are provided with the credible fear interview. So you have to be clear about those things. Amen. Everything is, again, consistency, credibility, and the right amount of evidence that you provide. There's been cases that you can win just by the good declaration, period, only. It happens. It happened. But nowadays is more difficult. All asylum cases are difficult, especially from Latin America. Uh, so you have to be really really specific in what you're asking.
Yeah. Thank you for those insights, attorney, and apologies once again. We seem to be having technical issues, but we move forward. Now, for everyone watching, this discussion about asylum cases is not meant to create unrealistic expectations, but to provide clarity about how claims are evaluated. Even without perfect documentation, preparation, consistency, and credibility can play a critical role in the outcome of a case. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. ImmigrationQuestion.com is a networking platform where users can ask immigration related questions at no cost and engage with participating attorneys. We're also proud to share that ImmigrationQuestion.com is triple B accredited and ISO certified, reflecting our commitment to transparency, accountability, community education, and security. Now, Attorney Garro, based on your experience working with asylum seekers, how does ImmigrationQuestion.com help immigrants and immigration attorneys such as yourself?
Well, you guys are doing a great job by providing information to the public with this complicated and sometimes blurry um, topics. But you can, take advantage of this and contact you guys, and you can um, link them with an attorney with experience in the field, whatever that field is. Another thing that I would like to add to what I said is that just think about this uh, ground that the reason why you're being persecuted, but the reason why you're asking for asylum in the United States. It doesn't have to be the only reason, but it has to be one central reason why you're asking for asylum. So and it has to be linked to those five protected grounds. That is important to have in mind. But again, if you need information, you can contact uh, immigrationquestion.com, and they will they will connect you with an attorney with experience in your matter.
Thank you so much for those thoughts, Attorney. Now, before we move into our live Q&A, let's tackle this last important question. What is one common misconception asylum seekers have about evidence requirements that you believe should be clarified early in the process?
Well, one thing is that they think that they have to have everything. They have to have a bunch of different evidence, and that is not correct. Even gaps, even situations where there is no a good clear um, evidence to show what have happened there. You can state it, or documents are not available, like you said before, or things are not in your control. You can show that these limitations are common in your country, that these limitations are happening by utilizing different resources from the government and international institutions like Amnesty International. So you get reports. The Department of State reports of the United States is something that we use all the time, and other periodicals. You can say, okay, I can do this because of this, and this is the proof that this is happening in this region. So you don't have to be afraid that you don't have all the evidence, only that you have to explain why you don't have it.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we've been speaking with attorney Eric Garro on winning an asylum case without perfect evidence, what actually works. We are now moving into our live Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask general questions and hear educational insight from a licensed immigration attorney. Now, please drop those questions in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483, and we'll take as many as time permits.
Well, this question, my story is true, but I don't have many documents. Can I still win asylum? Of course you can. As I said before, you have to have a good declaration. Everything is about your declaration. What I would suggest people to do is write down um, all the things that had happened to you. Just write it down, put it into a piece of paper, so your attorney can come in and fill up the gaps and do um, a good declaration. So,
Mm,
as I said before, you can win a case with just a good declaration
yeah,
and explaining why you don't have anything else to prove for for an asylum case.
yeah. All right. Next question. Do I need police reports or medical reports to prove my case?
Medical reports and police reports and any type of report is evidence. In any single case, the most important thing in a trial to win is the evidence. You can say whatever you want, but you have to prove your claim. As I said before, if you don't have those, or you cannot obtain them for whatever reason, you have to provide a good explanation why you don't have them or why can't you obtain them. And it's a matter of credibility and consistency again. So, once again, the best thing is that you document everything that you can and have chronologically a good explanation of your situation from beginning to end. This is like telling a story. This is like, you know, providing a little snapshot of a novel. You just
Yeah.
create your story, it has to be consistent, and all those things are consistent with what is happening in the country. They know what is happening in the country. They are doing this on a daily basis. So all you have to do is point out to that in a clear, consistent manner that are very credible. That's all you
Yeah.
need.
All right. What kind of questions do officers ask during asylum interviews?
Well, everything depends on each case, right? But generally speaking, they will ask you where you're from, a little bit of your background to see who you are. They will ask you if you've been collaborating with, gang members. That is very important. They will look and ask you if you have tattoos, what kind of tattoos. They may ask you to show the tattoos. They may ask you to what are your beliefs, if you believe in God, if you, your political opinion. Why is your political opinion this way? Why you come up with these ideas? Depending on the case, right? Depending on what you're claiming, they will they will ask questions to prove that what you are saying is consistent, is correct, and is credible. Anything that you are claiming, they're gonna they're gonna question you. But generally speaking, is who you are, what is your situation, how can you prove this, why is it different than other crimes, and why the country you think is not protecting you or is unwilling to protect you. So those are the questions that, generally speaking, they ask. But they can ask you specific questions depending on your declaration, depending on the particular situation and where you're coming from, also your background, your ethnicity. You have, if you are, claiming that you are part of a certain group, well, you have to prove that you are part of that certain group. And if you claim that, and they ask you if you speak that language, things of that matter to prove and connect that what you're saying is correct and is truthful.
Thank you to everyone who joined us for this special edition webinar, and thank you, Attorney Garro, for sharing your knowledge and practical guidance with us today.
And thank you. I appreciate it.
You can always visit immigrationquestion.com to ask immigration related questions, stay informed about policy updates, and register for upcoming live events. If you missed any part of today's important discussion, the replay will be available soon on Spotify. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. We do look forward to seeing you on Thursday for our next live session. Until then, stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.